Hey guys, Scare9 here, and welcome back to my channel today, and in this video we are going to be ranking all 15 hunter exotics currently within Destiny 2. Now this is the time frame right after the Curse of Osiris launched. I believe it is called update 1.1.1, so if anything happens in the future, obviously it cannot be reflected in this video, but that being said, I am going to be giving my opinion on how these exotics stack up against one another. I'm going to be doing this in two separate ways that are going to flow together, so I am going to be going through them in order of 15 being the worst to the best exotic number 1, but I'm also going to be breaking them down into 3 tiers. The third tier is going to be the lower end, and thus tier 1 is going to be the exotics that I consider to be the best hunter exotics in the game. Now before we get into it, I do want to say, if you don't agree with anything I say in this video, let me know down in that comment section below. I honestly do love having discussions with you guys, and maybe reading your opinions on these exotics will give me new ideas and opinions on how these exotics should be used, and maybe change my mind on their overall utility. But with all of that out of the way, let's just go ahead and jump into the rankings. Now to start off this list, in my opinion, the worst exotic for hunters in Destiny 2 is going to be the exotic gauntlets, the Aeon Swift. The exotic perk on these gauntlets is called Aeon Energy. Dodging by your allies grants additional ability energy depending on what class they are. If they're a Warlock, they get bonus grenade energy. If they are a Titan, they get bonus barricade energy, and if they are a hunter, they get extra energy to dodge. And all of this is vastly increased if they are also wearing an Aeon Cult exotic. Now I love the idea of these. Each of the 3 classes has a quote-unquote Aeon exotic, and essentially it is just supposed to promote a large amount of synergy among your team, making it so you guys can quickly cycle throughout your class abilities. However, I believe that most of the function of these exotics is completely undermined by the fact that they take up your exotic slot. For instance, if you are wearing these, then you can't be meeting your maximum gameplay potential. Like if you're not wearing the Celestial Nighthawk, your DPS is not going to be good, or if you're not wearing another exotic that affects your super, your ad clearing ability is not going to be as good either. Really, I just feel like these types of gameplay advantages are not worth trading away just so your Warlocks can have extra grenades or your Titans can have another barrier. Now the next exotic on this list is going to be the Lucky Raspberry. This one's perk is called Probability Matrix. It increases the chaining capabilities of arc bolt grenades and also adds a chance to recharge it every time it deals damage. Now I actually struggled a lot with putting this one this low down on the list. I loved this thing in Destiny 1, but I feel like it's just not as viable as it once was. So obviously coming into Destiny 2, where these arc bolt grenades really aren't that useful anymore, it was a huge system shock for me. I jumped into Crucible, tried to use this thing, and honestly the grenades are just not functional enough for this to matter. They still do some damage, and getting your grenade back on the off chance is actually really cool, but the damage that arc bolt grenades can actually put off is really not worth trading off your exotic slot for. As a result, I'm putting it on the 14th spot on this list. Now the next exotic on this list is going to be the exotic chest piece, the Dragon Shadow. Its perk is called Wraith Metal Mail, and it grants increased movement speed and weapon handling speed for a short time after dodging. Now I do like this exotic because it is not subclass exclusive, however it feels extremely lackluster. The speed boost is extremely limited, and it is nothing compared to permanent boosts given by exotics like the Stompies, and the handling doesn't really make a difference in your gunplay either. Personally, I think it's a really cool idea once again for an exotic, but there's no reason to wear this over other higher end exotics, which we will get to in a second. So because of its lack of appeal and lack of utility, I'm gonna have to put it down this low in tier 3. Now the next exotic on this list is going to be the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves. This one's perk is called Spring Loaded Mounting and increases sidearm readiness and reload speed. Now the focus for this exotic is obviously aimed towards PvP, and it is definitely going to function a little bit better if you're running a dual sidearm setup. However, I would not recommend using this exotic pretty much ever. It is extremely limiting in your gameplay, and sidearms already have some of the quickest readying and reload speeds out of any of the weapon types in Destiny 2, so making those times even quicker doesn't really help much. Sidearms are also very good on their own. If you take something like the Last Hope, it has the fastest time to kill out of any archetype in the game, so making it so that it readies up or reloads a little bit faster really doesn't change your gameplay that much, so I'm gonna have to have a hard pass on these exotics as well, because sidearms already function quite well on their own. You don't need something to make them stand apart anymore, and thus I feel like it is much better to utilize that exotic slot by using an exotic that will impact more areas of your gameplay. The next exotic that we are going to be putting into the third tier is going to be the exotic helmet, the FOETRACER. Now this one's perk is called Relentless Tracker, and it visually marks targeted enemies, and it deals more damage to enemies who are marked who also have low health. Now, in my opinion, this exotic could be so much more than it is. It essentially just alerts everyone which target you're already looking at, but the crosshairs are really easy to overlook, and even if your teammates do see that enemy, does it really help? Why can't you just tell your teammates which one you were looking at, or why does it even matter in the first place? While using this exotic, I usually find myself in one of two situations. The first one is that I'm just fighting a lower tier enemy, this bonus doesn't help at all and I just kill it myself, and the second is that we are already all firing at a giant boss because they are huge and they already have a giant health bar above their head that shows up as a target. In addition, the bonus damage to weak enemies seems to be fairly minimal, and because they are already at low health, it is extremely easy to yet again just overlook. In the future, I hope to see a reworking of this exotic because I really do like the concept, but for the time being, I really think everyone should just leave this helmet out of their loadout. Now for the last exotic in tier 3, I'm going to be putting the young AHAMKARA'S spine. This one's perk is called Wish Dragon Teeth, and it increases trip mine grenade duration and marks enemies damaged by the blast. Now this is another exotic that is very dear to me. I was in love with this thing in Destiny 1. If you went into Mayhem with double grenades and you just threw trip mines all over the place, it was absolutely insane. However, like most grenades in Destiny, trip mines are nowhere close to where they used to be in terms of utility. Instead of being used to block off corridors, I find that I'm using trip mines much more commonly to finish off enemies that run around corners. In addition, you get grenades way more slowly in Destiny 2, meaning you won't get as much utility off of these exotics because in general the games are much shorter. And you get less grenades in the same amount of time, meaning that you should really use your exotic slot on something that is not focused on grenades. So I still really love the lore behind the young AHAMKARA'S spine, I really love the aesthetic, but because of all these reasons, I'm gonna have to put it down in tier 3. Now we have reached tier 2, which are the exotics that I encourage you guys using if you're looking for some more unique gameplay feelings, but they're still not good enough to be considered top tier exotics. So the first exotics here are going to be the Arc Strider Gauntlets, the SHINOBU'S Vow. Its perk called New Tricks improves your skip grenades and lets you gain an additional skip grenade charge. Now despite me not liking the other two exotics on this list that focus on grenades, I do actually really like the SHINOBU'S Vow. And this is for one main reason: you are now able to have 2 grenades, which is absolutely huge, especially in game modes like Mayhem. In addition to that, it increases the number of trackers your skip grenade has, meaning you can do more damage as well. So this means this exotic not only gives you an additional grenade charge, it makes those grenades more effective, which is something that the other 2 grenade focused exotics can't really say they do very well. So while the SHINOBU'S Vows are still not the best hunter exotic in the game, I still consider them to be better than the other 2 grenade focused exotics just because they provide better utility. Now the next thing coming in on this list is going to be the exotic leg armor, the Lucky Pants. Its perk is called Illegally Modded Holster, and it makes it so that precision hits that you get load 1 round to the chamber of stowed hand cannons. Now this is pretty good if you're running a hand cannon in general, but I personally feel like if you are taking your exotic slot to run these Lucky Pants, you need to be running a dual hand cannon loadout, which is actually extremely fun. I spent a couple hours yesterday running through story missions just pairing up the Red Death with other hand cannons while wearing the Lucky Pants, and it was extremely effective. You essentially never have to reload if you are really good at getting those precision hits. However, my one complaint is that this type of gameplay is not nearly as effective in every aspect of the game. For instance, you're not going to be able to take this into a raid scenario. It's just not as effective as some of the other exotics on this list. So if you ever feel like being a true gunslinger, these are definitely the exotics for you to use, but just make sure you are wary that they will not apply to every area of the game. Now the next exotic on this list is going to be the exotic helmet returning from Destiny 1, the GRAVITON FORFEIT. Its perk is called Vanishing Shadow, and it increases the duration of any invisibility effects, and in addition to that, your melee now recharges faster while you are invisible. Now obviously this focuses on invisibility, so it is going to be most effective on the Night Stalker subclass, and in addition to this, it can be even more effective while paired with the exotic sidearm, the Rat King. Now this one is a lot more fun than I thought it would be. If you are wanting to just run around like a ninja, I would definitely recommend using this thing, as it does significantly increase the time that you are invisible. While this is not a game style I would recommend that you guys take into competitive Crucible like the Trials of Osiris, it is definitely something you can have a lot of fun with in the more casual game types like Mayhem. So maybe if you're having some difficulty having fun in the Crucible because you find it a little bit repetitive, maybe do yourself a favor and try out the GRAVITON FORFEIT. You might like it more than you think. And now for the last exotic in tier 2, we're going to be talking about the Knucklehead Radar exotic helmet. This one's perk is called Upgraded Sensor Pack, and it makes it so that while you are aiming down sight, your radar still stays active. Now, I would definitely say that this exotic is much more useful in PvP than PvE. In PvE, you don't really need to have your radar that much. However, in Crucible, it is much more essential to know where your enemies are at all times. Now, to me, the Knucklehead Radar is just one of those exotics you throw on when you don't feel like working for your extra benefit. It provides a very solid addition to your gameplay experience without detracting or making you work any extra for it, which is pretty nice. Now, if you just want to hop into Crucible, you had a long day, and you don't want to worry about people shooting you in the back, the Knucklehead Radar is definitely the best exotic for you to be using. Now, while there are other exotics that are much more effective in general in PvP, I feel like this exotic definitely has some type of place in your semi-regular loadout. And with that, we have now reached the first tier of Hunter exotics in Destiny 2. Now, the first one in this tier is going to be the brand new set of exotic boots, the GEMINI Jester. These feature a perk called Misdirection. Dodging disorients nearby enemies and temporarily removes their radars. Now, this one is obviously much more Crucible focused than PvE focused, and it is actually a lot of fun to use. It's super effective in my experience, and seeing enemies randomly scramble about because they can't see their radar can make for some really funny moments in the Crucible. During my couple of hours of using this exotic, I found one very good strategy that seemed to work every single time. If you go up to a room and you know that there are a couple people in it, stand right outside the wall and dodge. The shockwave will actually go through the wall, disorient all the enemies inside the room, allowing you to jump into the room, take all of them by surprise, and hopefully the shock will actually make it so that you can kill all of them without them noticing. So if you are smart about how you enter the room, you should be able to knock them out pretty quickly. But really, if you have not tried this exotic, I definitely recommend it. It's extremely effective, it's really fun, and overall, in my opinion, it is fitting of a tier 1 slot for this list. Now, the next exotic on this list is going to be the one that I consider to be the best PvP exotic for hunters in the game. That is going to be the Stompy's exotic boots. Their perk is called Hydraulic Boosters. It increases sprint speed and slide distance and improves your double jump. Now, when it says that it improves your double jump, that is actually a huge understatement. With these things, you can jump over a 3-story building easily. It is insane. Now, we just talked about the GEMINI Jester, which disorients your enemies, but you know what makes your enemies even more confused than blurring their screen a little bit? Jumping 50 feet over their freaking head. They won't know what hit them. It's super funny to watch people just flail around when they're trying to catch up to you. I definitely would recommend trying it out because it's not only something that's really fun, it is extremely effective as well. So definitely give these a try, add them into your normal loadout, and go have some fun. Now we have reached the top 3 Hunter exotics in my opinion, and what's really cool about these 3 exotics is that they're actually representative of a different subclass. So there's going to be the top one for Arc Strider, the top one for Night Stalker, and the top one for Gunslinger, all represented in these top 3 exotics, which I find to be pretty cool. Now the first one is going to be the top Arc Strider exotic in the game, and that is going to be the exotic chest piece, the RAIDEN FLUX. Its perk is called SYNAPSE Junctions, and it makes it so that quick successive attacks with Arc Staff increases damage output and duration. Now Arc Strider already lasts an extremely long time when you're in your super, but with this chest piece, you can essentially have an infinite amount of super if enemies keep coming. It is pretty awesome, especially when you're running through an event with a lot of trash mobs like public events. It's a perfect example of how a subclass specific exotic should be. It not only needs to affect your gameplay in a positive way, it needs to elevate this subclass to a whole new level, which is something the RAIDEN FLUX definitely does. It looks really cool. Your super is just in general much more effective while you are wearing this exotic, and overall I personally feel like your gameplay experience is vastly increased while wearing the RAIDEN FLUX, so I definitely would recommend to anyone out there who loves using the Arc Strider. Now the next exotic on this list is going to be the runner-up for the best hunter exotic in my opinion, and that is going to be the Orpheus Rig. This one's perk is called Uncanny Arrows, and it provides ability energy for each enemy tethered by Shadow Shot anchors. Essentially this means if you tether enough enemies with your Shadow Shot, you will automatically get your super back again. This seems to be around 7 to 8 enemies. It's actually extremely easy to do, especially if you're doing something like running a strike or doing public events, or even if you are doing the raid, and essentially you are able to do 3 three main things with this exotic. First off, you are making sure that your teammates are doing more damage by tethering enemies, which provides a debuff, which makes them take more damage. You are also providing the best source of orb generation in the game. Infinite tethers means infinite orbs, meaning that the rest of your team can also get infinite supers. And third, you are making sure that you really aren't using any of your ammo, so you can save the important pieces of ammo like your power ammo for more important objectives than killing regular enemies like destroying the generators during a Glimmer Drill public event. So overall, the Orpheus rig is another example of what an exotic should do. It elevates the Night Stalker to a whole nother level. It provides bonuses to not only you but your teammates and pretty much everyone around you as a whole, and overall they're just fantastic. And now we have reached what I consider to be the best exotic for hunters in Destiny 2. I don't think anyone should be surprised by this. It is going to be the Celestial Nighthawk exotic helmet. This one's perk is called Hawkeye Hack, and it modifies Golden Gun to fire a single high damage shot, and enemies eliminated by the shot explode. Man, where do I start with the Celestial Nighthawk? I just love this thing. It is the only way people have been able to one-phase Argos in the Eater of Worlds so far. It was the original way people managed to one-plate Callus, and it is without a doubt the best hunter exotic, if not the best exotic piece of armor in the game. It is the defining exotic for hunters during public events, strikes, raids, all of these crazy PvE activities. This thing just makes you unstoppable and is a boss melter. Like I said, it is essentially unparalleled in the amount of DPS you can put out with this thing, and honestly, if you're in a raid not using the Celestial Nighthawk, you should probably reconsider that, as it'll make your experience much easier. So with that, we have gone through all 15 hunter exotics in the game. Let me know what you guys think about my rankings down in the comment section below, but I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating and to share it with your friends. If you were interested in watching my video where I rank all 24 exotic weapons currently in Destiny 2, you can click the annotation on screen to be taken to that. If you are brand new to my channel, make sure to hit the giant version of my logo on screen to be subscribed for more awesome Destiny 2 videos and live streams. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you in my next video.